Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and we have a remarkable program for you. One of my favorite guests, Michael Connolly, attorney for the U.S. Justice Foundation, and the website is usjf.net. That's usjf.net. And you've been following a number of cases regarding veterans and also dealing, because you're in Texas, with the immigration issue, the massive surge. In the first 6 months of the year, over 290,000 illegal immigrants arriving. Of course, we know from other sources that, in fact, the CIA are involved with killing Guatemalan Indian males, and a lot of the women are being told that if they head to America, plus there must be paid-off agents in Mexico, because normally the Mexican government are very aggressive at stopping their southern border, allowing Guatemalans, Nicaraguans, and others coming in. So they are obviously, somebody's being paid off to let them go in from encampments to the death trains, they literally call them that, running up to the Rio Grande and dumping them across the border in Texas. We're having a disaster here because many of them are coming in very sick, some of them with serious psychiatric illness and very fearful, a lot of them in a disaster-type state because of what's going on in Guatemala, Nicaragua, and other countries. A lot of it, I think, is being promulgated by misinformation by people like Nancy Pelosi, that's made a statement literally on the border that, quote, we are all Americans, which is like, that's kind of insane. To become an American is a process that takes time, education, and proper vetting of people to make sure they're not entering as criminals. So, Michael, let's start off with the veterans first, and let's go through the situation of why I personally think what Obama's doing is a crime. It's a crime against the poor people of the countries rather than helping them in their country. And if they are indeed, from my sources, they are killing Guatemalan males, especially in the native communities, and these women are coming up with their children arriving on our doorstep, this is a disaster that's promulgated to destroy the nation state and our borders as a prelude, I think, to North American Union. I really see that the thing that popped up about a decade ago about the Amero, which is the North American currency, which is real, was actually printed, I saw pictures of it, that I think that the globalists are finally surging now toward an idea of a North American Union where Canada, the United States, and Mexico become a trade zone 3, according to the Council on Foreign Relations, Foreign Affairs, I believe it was the fall of 1992 or 1993, Foreign Affairs Journal. So I think they're getting ready for the final push.
Well, I think so. I think that's clearly what's happening here is the leftists who are pushing for $3.4 billion to be spent on these illegals coming in and to not deport anybody are basically declaring us an open border country. They're saying that borders would no longer exist in the United States, that anybody can come here for any reason whatsoever. Now, you talk about the women and the children coming from Guatemala and El Salvador and Honduras, but there's others we have to talk about. Many of these so-called children, and this has been talked about by the sheriffs on the southern border of Texas, many of these so-called children are, in fact, teenagers with gang tattoos on their faces.
Exactly. I've heard that story, too. We've talked about this for 16, 17, 18-year-olds are arriving. These are gang members that are extremely vicious, violent killers, and they're being literally bussed around the country and just dumped into foster homes, carrying diseases and having a bad attitude and wanting to join gangs.
Right. A lot of them are connected with MS-13, which is the most vicious of the gangs out of Central America. And so they're going into our communities. They're not being, even if their criminal history is known, they're not being detained. They're not being deported. They're being literally dumped, as you say, in cities throughout the country. And in addition, the reports I'm getting from people on the border is that we also have a lot of people coming in from Yemen, from Somalia, from Iran, from Iraq, from other terrorist-supporting countries that are using this opportunity to cross the border and setting up cells throughout the South and probably in other states, cells that will ultimately result in terrorist attacks. High military officials are warning about this. They're saying we are vulnerable now more than ever before to terrorist attacks within this country. And then you have a situation in Mexico where now a second batch of nuclear material has been stolen, and they don't know where it is or who has it in their hands, but this is material that can be used to make dirty bombs. And can you imagine the devastation of a dirty bomb being set off in Houston, Texas, or Phoenix, Arizona, or San Diego, California, or Albuquerque, New Mexico?
Well, I'm an expert on these because I was a member of the nuclear division. We also was involved with Operation Top Off in Dark Winter. And all they need basically is nuclear waste, even from a cyclotron from a cancer clinic, but they have spent nuclear waste from nuclear reactors. And what they do is make what's called a sticky or glue bomb, where you basically make the conventional nuclear waste around a conventional bomb. And when it explodes, which is very high explosive like C4 or RDX or high explosive cord, then it blows all this material over many blocks, and it sticks to people, and it's virtually impossible to decontaminate. And that's what we're talking about. The dirty bombs are incredibly devastating, and they ultimately result in death, and also dead zones where you can't decontaminate the buildings. You have to literally tear everything down and haul it away.
Well, that's absolutely correct, and that's what we're looking at here, and that's, we're being invaded. And I'm doing a blog article right now, which I'm going to post later today on my blog, and will shortly thereafter be posted at usjf.net. People can read it on my blog by going to usjf.net and looking at the About Michael Connolly Executive Director section. They can find the link to my blog, and also on that they can find the link to my talk radio show, where I'm going to be talking about this next week. But what I am proposing is something rather radical, and it is based on the Constitution. Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution says, no state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. That is authority for the governor of the state of Texas and the governors of the other border states to deploy the National Guard, to do whatever is necessary to seal our borders. Obviously, Congress is not going to do it. Congress should be appropriating money for the states to do this instead of appropriating money to feed, house, and take care of a bunch of illegals coming into the country. But Congress is not going to act. Obama is totally oblivious. He's been in Texas the last 3 days raising money for Democratic campaigns, but refuses to go to the border to visit these children in this humanitarian crisis, to look at what's happening at our southern border. So the governors are empowered to act here. Now, Obama will scream bloody murder. The left will scream bloody murder. It doesn't matter. The governors can do this under the Constitution.
Well, we also have two different things. The Texas state is unusual because it has its own private army, if you want to call it. The Texas has a separate institution, even from the Texas State Guard. It also has a capacity with now, I think 36 states already have a constitutionally constituted militia. And they can call on the militia, which is separate from the National Guard, to actually start doing these duties. What's happening, and this is a proposal I'm going to make, it's very hard to tell the difference between something from Central and South America, especially these gang people, and people from the Middle East and countries where we're very likely to be at war with within a matter of months. The situation with Israel attacking Gaza, over 536 attacks with missiles in the last 4 days, 40-plus Palestinians dead in these areas. There's battle going back and forth about these missing 3 teenagers, which we think were probably killed, actually. Some of them were American citizens as well as Israeli, that they were killed by settlers rather than by the Palestinians. This situation with ISIS, where we're now making new alliances with extreme elements of ISIS and giving them Stinger missiles, another 74 delivered, man pads, advanced weapon systems, tanks, etc., rocket-propelled grenades, advanced anti-missile systems. This is very crazy. We're also coming against the Maliki government that's now making alliances with Iran to get the old Saddam Hussein MiG-26 jets. The situation, I think, is literally a pre-war situation, and I think that the massive surge from Central and South America was engineered because we have proof that they actually were recruiting people to accept these children 6 months before the crisis. They're using it as a cover for Muslims that you can't tell from Central Americans that are here for terrorist activities when all hell breaks loose. So you're right.
Absolutely right. I think they're coming in.
That's right. It's a cover, and Obama is participating and collaborating in it. Come back, and Michael, again, I want people to get your other website. I'm going to be posting up the links. It's Michael, Michael Connolly, CONNELLY.jigsy, JIGSY.com. And your blog from a month ago, June 10th, talks specifically about the articles of impeachment, which you mentioned, and give us more details. This is now before the House committee now that deals specifically with this issue, the Legislative Committee on Impeachment. And I really think that people need to start pushing now, because here's where I see this outcome coming if we don't do this. Obama is running scared, the Democratic Party running scared as we head toward the midterm elections. And I think that if Obama thinks he's going to lose power and the people backing him, he's going to declare a state of national emergency while dirty bombs go off, while terrorist activity occurs, while plagues expand across the nation, which are, of course, all been pre-engineered. And at the same time, we have a Mideast war exploding in our midst, with Israel attacking and being attacked, with Russia being pulled into a war in Ukraine. And these multiple fronts will basically keep Obama in power, because it'll be a state of national emergency, as the criminal bankers continue to crash the world economy and then start bailing in people's money and locking down bank accounts. Having a bank holiday, like the song jingle that Gerald Celente sings, a bank holiday, it's a holiday. Well, it's not a holiday, it's a holiday from your money. And if people don't realize that this is coming, then when it's this massive surge where they're hiring employees 6 months in advance before it happened, because the government knew it was happening, because it was an inside job, just like 9/11, which was done through Israeli and Saudi agents using micronukes, just like the issues of all these things, like, were basically an inside job. We know 3/11 was an inside job that occurred, even in Japan, this issue with the tsunami that struck Japan. And the situation now, I think, is a pre-American collapse, martial law scenario, that if we don't impeach Obama, we're soon going to be sunk.
Well, yeah, we have to take action. And right now, the articles of impeachment that I've prepared, formal articles we submitted to members of Congress, have been referred by at least one, and we think more members of Congress, to the House Judiciary Committee. And they are considering it, and people can contact members of the Judiciary Committee and tell them they want them to vote these out to the House floor so they can be considered by the House. Now, it only takes a majority of the House of Representatives to pass articles of impeachment. It would then take 2/3 of the Senate to convict the president and remove him from office. And we know that's not going to happen under the current Senate, or even if the Republicans take control of the Senate. However, if the articles of impeachment pass the House will be then appointing special prosecutors, and the Democrats won't be able to block this, appoint special prosecutors with extraordinary subpoena powers. They can go after the documents, like Obama's admitted there are documents about Fast and Furious he doesn't want us to know about, so he invoked executive privilege. The executive privilege pretty much gets set by the wayside in an impeachment situation. We could also have these House prosecutors subpoena and take the depositions of some 30 individuals who were at Benghazi and know what actually happened that night. And they've been hidden by the administration. The administration has refused access to them, to the House committees. They cannot refuse access to these prosecutors. So all of this evidence would then be presented in a full-scale trial in the Senate, with the senators being the jury, and Judge Roberts being the presiding judge, and Obama would have his own defense attorneys. All of this would be public. It couldn't be hidden from the public. Even the mainstream news media would have to start taking note of some of this. And some of the senators coming up for re-election, for doing it in 2016, would be put in a position of having to either vote to impeach or to find them guilty, or explain to their constituents why they're allowing all these crimes to continue to be committed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of scrutiny will put a stop to Obama and his administrative wackies, because really they're operating as proxies for the globalist bankers. Their scenario is they can't make money at the derivatives market anymore. They're ready to do bail-in, which is literally in Europe 15% of everybody's assets, including their home equity, their bank accounts, their Social Security deposit boxes, their pension funds. And those bail-in policies are now universal right across the Western world. And Obama, acting as a proxy for the globalist, what we call fascists, is ready to tear down the nation-state of America and make us just another zone of Trade Zone 3 for North America, which is Zone 3 in the 10-zone area of the world, just like it says right in the Bible. We're in a situation now where Obama is ready to basically become the last president of the United States.
He is, and this is something else, another reason for getting these articles of impeachment passed through the House and in front of the Senate, because Obama right now is using executive orders and executive actions to do all kinds of things that are illegal and violate the Constitution and violate his oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that's what most of my articles of impeachment are based on, is his violations of the oath of office and violations of Article 2 of the Constitution, which basically says the president shall enforce the laws passed by Congress. It doesn't say he can change the laws, which Obama does all the time. It doesn't say he can refuse to enforce the laws, which he does, like in the immigration situation. It doesn't say he can make new laws. But Obama continues to do it. However, if he is being tried, impeachment articles are presented, he is being tried, and his whole future as president is under scrutiny and is threatened, then he would have to stop or at least curtail significantly his plans for the next 2.5 years to use executive orders to take away our Second Amendment rights, to continue his attacks on the veterans in this country. I think we could put a significant dent in his plans.
Yeah, I think so. And in fact, in other words, your plan is one that's doable, it's essential, and if we don't do it now, we're going to really regret it, because all the science tell me, historic and otherwise, from all our experts, that if we don't put this into action now, the rights of veterans is further going to be eroded. The rights of citizens, if we go to martial law, their bank accounts will be seized. We'll have a situation where we could even have foreign or United Nations troops on American soil literally disarming the public. We could have a situation that's completely out of control, and America will be literally cease to exist as a separate sovereign nation. That's where I see this all going.
You know, that's the ultimate plan. I mean, that's the ultimate plan of Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. This has always been the ultimate plan of progressives, that we are to become no longer a constitutional republic, but a socialist or communist nation under a dictatorship, and that all of our freedoms will be taken away. The Bill of Rights will cease to exist. The Constitution will cease to exist. And we're going to have the elitist in this country who all look at the rest of us as the unwashed masses who are too stupid to be able to handle our own affairs, that we will be under the elitist control, and they think that that's exactly what they want to have happen. They don't think they want to have it happen. They're working to make it happen.
Right, and the problem is, you see, for the average person, they think, well, they can't do anything about it. Yes, you can. You can you can go to these websites, usjf.net. They can go to michaelconnolly.jigsy.com, read the articles of impeachment, contact your congressman, get the ball rolling on this, because the time window is narrowing. Israel is ready to start a regional war in response to the attacks against them. And Muslim nations are now rising up against each other, but pretty soon against America and Israel. We're about to see a major war break out in Ukraine because Russia is going to move within a week. If we don't impeach Obama, all hell is going to break loose. Michael Connolly. And Michael, you have your own radio show as well on Wednesdays, and that is, I think, is it 3 o'clock Central Time and 4 o'clock Eastern?
Right, that's correct. And also the shows, that's where we broadcast live, and the shows are archived on the website, America's Web Radio, and so that people can listen to them anytime they want to. And we talk about, the show is called Our Constitution, the same name as my booklet. And that's what we talk about, is the Constitution. Now, understand that there's a movement right now. And see, this is what bothers me also about what's happening on our border. We have this crisis on our border, and the Democrats in the Senate have two priorities right now, none of which involve protecting the United States or resolving the crisis on the border. They just want to throw money over to Obama and let him spend it however he wants. And most of it will go to his political cronies and his contributors, not to the refugees or the illegals on the border, whatever they want to call them. But the Senate's two priorities right now are, number one, to reverse the Hobby Lobby decision, which was a very narrow decision based on very narrow actions by Hobby Lobby. They provide contraception services to their female employees. They did not want to provide the morning after pill, which causes abortions. The Supreme Court said they do not have to have their religious freedom violated by HHS. Harry Reid and the Democrats in the Senate have vowed to overturn that, to take away religious freedom in this country, and to allow Obama to be in control of what freedoms we have when it comes to religion. Then the Senate's second priority, and this is Chuck Schumer's baby, is to overturn another Supreme Court decision that says that nonprofits like the United States Justice Foundation and Tea Party groups and corporations that are for profit have been allowed by the Supreme Court to spend money in political campaigns, to start PACs, and to, in the case of the Justice Foundation, we don't endorse candidates, but we do look at the candidates or the records of candidates and incumbents, and we do talk about the issues that were important to us on the Constitution. The Chuck Schumer wants to shut that down, and the IRS has actually proposed regulations, which we're fighting at the United States Justice Foundation, that would, 60 days prior to this upcoming election, stop my radio show from being broadcast unless I talk about gardening, and would stop me from publishing on my blog, would stop us from putting anything on the USJF.net website, and that would deal with issues, and basically would shut down all conservative groups in the country for 60 days prior to the election. This would not apply to labor unions or their PACs or groups like MoveOn.org, which is an ultra-liberal group funded by George Soros. This would be strictly aimed at us.
Wow. And that's mind-boggling, isn't it? It
is. And, of course, they're going to have a tough time getting me to obey it. But what they'll do is they will go after our 501c3, and we've been a 501c3 for 36 years, which means contributions to the U.S. Justice Foundation are tax deductible. And we don't charge our clients anything for representing them on constitutional issues. We're not charging the veterans, and we have scores of them around the country now that we're working with. We're not charging them a penny or their families. We raise our money independently. We have one lawsuit against the VA we've already won. We're preparing several more. We're filing 4 Freedom of Information Act requests to the FBI, to the VA, to the Department of Defense, and Department of Homeland Security. All of that costs money. We estimate we need to raise $250,000 to $500,000 for these veteran suits. People can go to USJF.net and contribute and deduct it from their taxes. If they pass these draconian laws against free speach, or not laws, regulations, because they're not being considered by Congress.
Yeah, they're not laws.
Schumer's bill.
Right.
And, then we would lose our status, and people would stop contributing to us. And, that's exactly what they want to have happen. So, It's an all-out assault on free speech in this country. It has been for some time, and it's just going to keep getting worse.
Well, what's amazing to me is that this has gone on so far now that we're at the point now where basically liberty is finally going to have gasp. It's going to die. And I don't think people realize just how far along this rabbit trail we are. But, as we're approaching midterm elections, as we're approaching the danger that Obama may feel that he's under such unpopular situations, or that impeachment is imminent, he's likely to, through his functionaries or the connections, they're likely to do serious terrorist activity on American soil. We can see that they planned this activity out, including hiring 6 months before the people to handle all the surge of children and teenagers, and then their method of using medics, which are not properly trained to deal with infectious disease, and not properly housing them, and then busing them or putting them in public air traffic planes where they have scabies and lice and tuberculosis. It's an obscenity. This is not a way to run a public health system. 100 years ago, they wouldn't do it this way on Ellis Island. It's just ridiculous.
Yes, as well as worse than that. I mean, you've also got a number of cases of swine flu being reported in South Texas now. Border agents being exposed to swine flu, tuberculosis, chickenpox. In Marietta, California, where the population is rising up to fight more people being brought into there, they're concerned about this very thing because they're finding these cases among the people that are being housed in their communities. And
what they did, swine flu, by the way, we tracked it back to a Baxter Lab facility owned by a transnational corporation, Baxter Corp, that was making vaccines, and they genetically engineered this virus. We went back and actually got virologists from Australia and proved that it was a genetically recombinant laboratory-based virus. And it was a small village outside of the Baxter facility south of Mexico City. And what's going on now, all these people are coming up with swine flu, which in 2009, we know that originated from this area just south of Mexico City. So this is what's going on, and these people are being brought here to bring plagues. There's no need for it whatsoever. No need. Even if we had a humanitarian regime where we're going to say we're going to accept certain people that are vetted properly, we're not doing that. These are uncontrolled situations. And rather than clean up the mess in their own country, where we literally are, through our CIA operatives, killing males that are in the native reserve areas in Guatemala, the signal is being sent by Nancy Pelosi and by Obama is we'll dump on the street 70,000 plus known felons that are actually in detention right now and would otherwise be deported, to literally just bust them and dump them on the streets. So across America, the signal is being sent to Central and South America that, hey, don't worry, they won't kick you out like Mexico or any other country. They're going to accept or even let you go on the streets and find a local gang and, kick in the doors of dormant homes that are, that are basically gone into some kind of real estate limbo, and just kind of hang out until you get to a local gang and away you go. That's what's happening.
That's what's happening, and the terrorists are coming across the border. And of course, we've seen this coming in Texas for a long time, because Obama has ordered Border Patrol agents to stand down. In Arizona, for example, he's put federal land off limits to local law enforcement. You have a huge tract of federal land in Arizona that butts up against the Mexican border and then extends all the way to Interstate 80. Local authorities are not allowed on that land. Border Patrol is not allowed on that land. People are documented at night using infrared cameras, truckloads of illegals coming in across the border, straight up to Highway 80, where they're met with buses and other transport to take them to American cities. They've also been bringing with them truckloads of what appear to be drugs, illegal drugs, and possibly containing weapons. All of this coming in under the Obama administration. Then you have the outrage, and this was never reported by the mainstream news media, but we know what happens here in Texas. When Obamacare was launched and they needed people to sign up, they were holding receptions at the Mexican consulates on the border inside Texas, bringing in Mexicans from across the border and urging them to sign up for Obamacare. They were being told, we know you don't live in the United States, but you come over here, you sign up for Obamacare, it pads the numbers for us, and then anytime you need treatment, you just come across the border to one of the hospitals in these clinics in these Texas towns, and they will be forced to treat you for free.
Wow.
And this was an outrage that was occurring. They were actually advertising in Mexico.
Yeah, see, this is
across the border and sign up for Obamacare.
This is the final push by the bankers to make America. And Michael, I remember talking to one of my special forces guys, because as a doctor, I worked with the military for over a third of a century, and the guys I worked with in Delta and Special Ops, etc. And I remember one guy, he said jokingly, he said, we can take over a building with a dinner fork and a knife, a butter knife. He said, doesn't even have to be sharp. And I said, this is why veterans are under constant attack. They learn skill sets. They have tactics. They have the wherewithal to make a lot of these things happen almost like automatic reflexes under extremely high pressure, life and death situations. And that's why the attacks against the veterans are so vicious, because it's a pre-martial law, pre-war stance to attack veterans, to take their guns. Laws passed like in the state of New York where the Special Op Delta forces basically are under attack, coming back from 2 and 3 and 4 terms of work in Afghanistan or Iraq. And now they're treated like they're mentally ill because they may have some mild post-traumatic stress or some mild depression and readjustment. And as a result, they're told that they're not fit to actually carry a weapon when that's what they did. And it's amazing to me that there's not more public outcry, but your lawsuit's trying to fight back against the attack against the veterans. And the attack is so systematic in every realm. It's coming right from the top, from Obama and from the people that advise Obama, that they want to make sure they disable and institutionalize and quarantine from every aspect of being involvement in the civilian militia, because they can train other young people that are half their age. They can take action themselves because they're often, as they say, in their 60s, they might be 80% of their strengths, but they got 3 times the wisdom of the average person, and that makes a lot of difference. So if things get nuts, you want a lot of veterans around. I think there's, 222.5 million veterans. Already there's 94 million Americans armed to the teeth with billions of bullets. The government will never catch up. If every army on earth was dumped into America, we'd saw them down in a matter like throwing wood into a wood chipper. The fact is the government's terrified of that. And so they've been buying Bearcats and weapon systems and drones, and they're violating even airspace over places like Denver where they have near misses for hits for commercial airliners. This is no joke. Obama and the people behind him are getting ready for martial law. And it's not an easy thing. I think, to be honest with you, martial law can't work. You can start off with bank holidays, you can block off the freeways, and if you start actually shooting at people, the people that start to try to enforce this, they'll die so quick their half-life will be like a piece of raw meat among Rottweilers. They won't live long at all, because every person, every sheriff, every veteran, anybody who can shoot a gun, anybody who has skill sets of any kind, including medical and otherwise, is going to be on the side of right. And anybody otherwise, and that includes this crazy government, is going to find out, like the Bureau of Land Management, that it's not a good idea to take on the American public. This is a really stupid thing, but their idea is make us sick, destroy our economy, make us deal with natural disasters, make us deal with fear and dirty bombs going off, try to get us down to authentication so we don't really have money in our pocket anymore. It's all electronic divots in their supercomputer, which is right out of hell to have that kind of system set up. They don't want bartering, even silver and gold coins, as it says in the Bible. They want to canker or rust because it will be that useless. It's actually in Patriot Act 1 that at some point the government can declare gold and silver as non-competent currency and illegal and enforceable by imprisonment for 1 year or more. And if you're in prison for 1 year or more, you can be sent to a civil detention camp. So, Michael, I think that this situation is the final push by the global maniacs who are reaching forth beyond their competency level, and they're going to get stopped, and it's going to get ugly, and it's going to be a mess because enough of the public doesn't realize how late the hour is, do they?
No, and there are 23 million veterans out there, and they all took the same oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I took that oath. I have two sons that are still in the Army today, and this is a family tradition for us to defend our country. I've written a book called The Mortarman, about my dad's unit during World War II, which has suddenly become a bestseller. It's selling about 1,000 copies a month because people are interested in looking at the history of the greatest generation and how they fought to defend our nation. And right now we have kids out there fighting to defend our nation, and the attack on the veterans is escalating. I have whistleblowers inside the VA who are giving me information about where it originated, and it came from the White House. Veterans are being asked when they go to the hospitals, and I'll confirm this, they're being asked, do you own a firearm? How do you feel about the U.S. government? How do you feel about the Obama administration? They're being told to strip down and have their bodies inspected to see if they have any so-called radical tattoos. Veterans are having their money stolen from them by VA employees. Veterans are being told they cannot own firearms if they have minor PTSD, if they let their spouses pay the family bills, even if they have an automated system where their bills are paid automatically out of their checking account. They're being declared incompetent and told they can't own firearms. 159,000 veterans currently on the NICS list, the National Instant Criminal Background Check list run by the FBI. And 99.9% of them don't belong on there. They have not been adjudicated to be mentally ill or being a point of danger to themselves or others.
Well, there's a process.
Decided when he took office that he was changing the definition of adjudication. You no longer have to have a judge or an administrative judge here have a hearing. Any federal employee, according to Eric Holder, at any level of government, even if they're a contract employee, is capable of declaring you or I as veterans mentally ill to the point of being a danger to ourselves or others.
With no application of either evidence, a judicial court, countering evidence, rules of interrogatories or questions to ask in a hearing, nothing. I mean, this is literally tyranny at its most vicious levels.
Right, no due process at all.
Yeah.
And it's continuing all over the country, and we are in the process of preparing, like I said, Freedom of Information Act requests, because veterans now are finding that even if they somehow win an appeal, and all the burden of proof is always on them. It's not on the government to prove they're incompetent. It's on them to prove they are competent. On the rare cases where they win an appeal, they're being told by the FBI, well, tough. Still, you have to turn in your firearms because we're not going to take you off the list, even though you've been found incompetent or found competent. So what's happening to our veterans is just incredible. The horror stories are pouring in. People need to go to usjf.net and donate to help us fight this. If you're a veteran out there and this is happening to you, or you're not being treated for illnesses or losing your money, then contact me personally at Michael at USJF, that's for United States Justice Foundation, Michael at USJFmail, MAIL.net. And we will try to work with you and represent. If we represent you, we will do so at no charge to you.
So that's Michael at USJF mail, and is not .mail, it's just mail, MAIL.com, right?
.net.
.net. Okay, so it's Michael at USJFmail.net.
Right.
Very good. I've posted up that email. This is the contact. We need donations now. Yeah, and I think that this is so important. I don't think people realize that alternative radio is the final bulwark against the tyranny of a controlled media now owned by corporations. And we have a total fusion now, fascist fusion, transnational corporations, media, and government that are now operating with the secret cabal of all the secret agencies of all the countries on earth to literally crush the populations, take away the idea of sovereignty, the idea of representative government in any nation. And that doesn't just mean America, it means any nation, including Argentina, where the U.S. Supreme Court is trying to take away personal property and state property of Argentina based on U.S. courts, which is totally being opposed by the Organization of American States. So the OAS is absolutely opposing America, but America, through Obama and the globalist bankers, don't give a damn. And right now that means that everybody is in trouble. Everybody is on the chopping block, and when they blow the stock market, when they devalue the currency, when they declare martial law, which they're going to try to do, they'll never really succeed. They'll succeed for a period of time, but when the pushback comes, you'll see America like some of the movies that have come out lately. It'll break up into a number of sub-states, if you want to call it sub-nations. But they want that. The globalists want America to break up and balkanize because that makes it easier to digest America into a larger beast empire where America is just a zone on a map. That's what they want.
That's correct.
That's where they're going. They don't want a strong nation with representative government. They don't want government operating in a proper manner. They want to totally crush the people of America and make certain that no one has representative authority or the rule of law or constitutional rights. Amazing. Thank you, Michael Connolly. We've got to get you back on soon to remind people how serious this is. After the 4th of July, it's time now to really get to work. And donations, I'll be donating for certain. Michael at USJFmail.net is the email. You go to USJF.net and michaelconnolly.jigsy, JIGSY.com for the articles. They're all posted up now. Go to Nutrimedical.com. You'll find them all there. Talk again soon. Michael, we need to get back in a couple of weeks to update people what's going on. Impeachment Central again. Really important. Take care.
Thank you for having me on, Dr. Bill. Take care.